Introduction: A legacy beyond a name. In the vast and shimmering tapestry of American entertainment, there are those who inherit a storied name, and then there are those who breathe entirely new life into it through sheer force of will and talent. Today, we journey through the remarkable life and the truly enduring legacy of a man who didn't just follow in the footsteps of a legend, but carved his own distinct path into the very heart of our collective cinematic heritage. From his earliest beginnings in the flickering black and white days of early television to his ultimate transformation into one of the most prolific and respected directors of the modern age, this is the full, rich story of Robert Reiner. He is a man whose body of work taught an entire generation how to laugh at its own absurdities, how to feel the bittersweet, lingering ache of youth, and how to find the courage to stand up for what is right, even when it is difficult. For those of us who grew up watching him, he isn't just a filmmaker. He is a chronicler of the American spirit, a familiar face who grew up alongside us. Roots in comedy, growing up Reiner. The story begins in the bustling, vibrant streets of the Bronx in the spring of 1947. Rob was born into a household where laughter wasn't just a simple pastime or a hobby. It was the very air they breathed, the currency of their daily lives. Growing up as the son of the incomparable Carl Reiner, young Rob was immersed in the craft of comedy before he could even walk. While his father was busy in the smoke-filled writers' rooms of Manhattan, helping to shape the very landscape of television alongside giants like Sid Caesar, Mel Brooks, and Neil Simon, young Rob was a quiet and keen observer. He sat in the corners of studios, absorbing the rhythmic heartbeat of comedic timing and the profound weight of a well-placed word. He saw firsthand how a joke could be dismantled and rebuilt until it was perfect. Yet, as any child of a giant knows, the shadow cast by such monumental success can be long, cool, and often daunting. Rob's journey was never about escaping that shadow, but rather about stepping out from under it and into the light on his own merit. When the family eventually moved to California in the early 60s, the sun-drenched halls of Beverly Hills High provided a brand new stage. There, he found a brotherhood of kindred spirits, young, hungry men like Richard Dreyfuss and Albert Brooks, who shared his desperate hunger for creative expression. Together, they navigated the strange transition from the structured, buttoned-down 50s to the rebellious, neon-lit 60s, entirely unaware that they would one day be the ones to redefine Hollywood for a new century. The voice of a generation, all in the family. It was in the early 1970s that the world truly came to know the face of the man we'd come to call Michael. When a visionary producer, Norman Lear, cast him as Michael Stivic in the groundbreaking series All in the Family, Rob Reiner became a permanent, if sometimes controversial, fixture in our living rooms every Saturday night. As the liberal, long-haired son-in-law to Carol O'Connor's Archie Bunker, he represented the changing tide of an entire generation that was questioning everything their parents held dear. We watched them spar over the dinner table week after week, a nightly reflection of the very debates happening in our own kitchens and dens between fathers and sons who no longer spoke the same language. While Archie's nickname for him, Meathead, became a national catchphrase shouted on playgrounds and in offices across the country, Rob's performance was rooted in something much deeper than a punchline. He brought a genuine, soulful earnestness to the role that made Michael more than just a caricature of a hippie. He was a young man trying to find his moral compass in a world that seemed to be spinning off its axis with every news broadcast. He earned 2 Emmy Awards for the role, but more importantly, he earned the respect of a nation that saw its own fractured heart in those heated, televised arguments. For a decade, he was the voice of a new era, and for many of us, he felt like a surrogate brother or a son who was fighting the good fight on our behalf. Behind the camera, a director is born. As the 1980s dawned, however, a restlessness began to take hold of Rob. The applause of the studio audience was no longer enough. He felt a calling that pulled him away from the front of the camera and toward the quiet authority of the director's chair. He began this new chapter with a bold, hilarious risk that many in the industry thought was a guaranteed disaster. A mockumentary called this his Spinal Tap. It was a brilliant, razor-sharp look at the fading, ridiculous glory of heavy metal that felt so authentic many viewers didn't even realize it was a parody. It gave us the immortal phrase, "It goes to 11," and proved to the world that Rob possessed a master director's eye for the beautiful, fragile absurdities of the human condition. A golden streak, friendship, love, and timeless stories. What followed was perhaps one of the most incredible winning streaks in movie history. A decade of storytelling that remains almost unparalleled in its consistency and heart. He took us into the woods with Four Young Boys and Stand By Me, a film that captured the bittersweet ache of childhood friendship more perfectly than any film before or since. It was a story about that brief, shimmering moment before the innocence of youth fades forever into the hard realities of adulthood, and it resonated with anyone who remembered the smell of the pines, the taste of a stolen cigarette, and the haunting sound of a train whistle in the distance. Then came the pure magic of 1987, when he brought William Goldman's beloved book The Princess Bride to the silver screen. In an era dominated by cynical, loud action movies, Rob gave us a fairy tale that was sincere, whimsical, and deeply funny all at once. It was a labor of love that gave us heroes like Wesley and Inigo Montoya, characters who spoke to the timeless, old-fashioned virtues of honor, persistence, and true love. He followed this by completely redefining the modern romance with When Harry Met Sally. Through the witty, fast-paced conversations of Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan, he asked the questions we all wondered about love, sex, and whether men and women can ever truly be just friends without the world getting in the way. It was a film that felt as sophisticated as a classic Hepburn and Tracy comedy from the Golden Age, yet it vibrated with a heart and a frankness that was entirely contemporary. He had a gift for making us feel like we were sitting in that crowded deli right alongside them, eavesdropping on a conversation that felt as intimate as our own journals. Dark turns and moral battles. As we moved into the 90s, Rob proved that his range was absolutely limitless, transitioning seamlessly from light-hearted romance to bone-chilling, atmospheric suspense. He gripped our hearts and made us double-check our locks with the psychological tension of Misery, bringing Stephen King's harrowing tale of obsession to life with an intensity that left audiences breathless in their seats. He guided Kathy Bates to a well-deserved Academy Award, showing his unique, gentle ability to nurture legendary, career-defining performances. Then, he moved into the high-stakes, crisp world of the military courtroom with A Few Good Men. We can still hear the thunderous echoes of Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise facing off, a scene that has become part of the very fabric of American pop culture. Rob handled the heavy themes of power, duty, and moral complexity with a steady, dignified hand that never wavered. He later treated the American presidency with both reverence and a surprising touch of romance in The American President, showing us the human heart beating beneath the weight of the highest office in the land. He reminded us of the ideals we often hope our leaders might aspire to, even in our most cynical moments. Convictions beyond the screen. Throughout these decades of unprecedented success and fame, Rob Reiner remained a man of deep, unshakable conviction. Off-screen, he and his devoted wife Michelle became tireless, vocal advocates for the causes they held dear to their hearts. They didn't just attend glamorous galas. They did the hard, unglamorous work of advocacy. Rob became a champion for early childhood development, understanding with a father's intuition that the future of the country was written in the first few years of a child's life. He was a leader in the fight for marriage equality, standing up for the dignity of all families long before it was a popular or safe stance in the Hollywood mainstream. He didn't just want to entertain his audience for 2 hours. He wanted to leave the world a little better, a little kinder than he found it. His later years were marked by this same spirit of generosity and a continued, infectious love for the craft of acting. He returned to the screen in delightful roles where he often played the wise, slightly cantankerous, but always deeply loving father figure. Whether he was playing the dad in New Girl or the father of The Wolf of Wall Street, he brought that same warmth, that same ground-level humanity, and that twinkling eye that had made us fall in love with him 50 years prior. Final curtain, a life that endures. As we look back on his 78 years, we see a life lived with immense passion, unwavering integrity, and a fundamental belief in the power of a good story to bridge the divides between us. Even as the final curtain fell in the winter of 2025, the light he brought into the world remains undimmed and vibrant. From the cramped dinner table with Archie Bunker to the majestic, mythical cliffs of insanity, Rob Reiner gave us more than just movies. He gave us a common language of the heart. He showed us that while the world may change and the years may steal our youth, the things that truly matter, the bond of a friend, the warmth of a shared laugh, and the depth of a true love, are the only things that are truly timeless. He was a son of Hollywood who became a father to our collective imagination. Rest in peace, Rob. Thank you for the stories, for the laughter, and for always knowing exactly what was in our hearts.